Today, my guests on the show are Gianna Jessen and her personal trainer, Eric Hershey. Gianna was the survivor of a late-term abortion back in the 70s. She was born 2.5 months premature, and the doctor attending the abortion was actually not at work that day. The nurse who started the abortion, when she realized Gianna was born alive, called the hospital and immediately shifted her over to be on an incubator. Now, the doctors believed that Gianna would never be able to move, that she wouldn't be able to lift her head, let alone, for example, ever walk again. But Gianna had learned how to walk on several occasions in her life due to the many complicated surgeries she had, including back surgeries to help straighten her back. So her and Eric today on the show discuss the rigorous training schedule that she maintains in order to improve quality and longevity of life. But more importantly, they share information on how Gianna perceives the world, how she uses that perception to maintain a positive mindset and what I would call a champion winning mentality.
Quite frankly, it's kind of unusual.
It's quite Franklin.
Got it. Quite Franklin.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm blessed.
Nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Eric. I'm assuming this is Eric. Nice to meet you as well. Yeah. Gianna, did you train today?
No, I've injured myself, and so we're just taking it a little bit easy.
Rehabbing a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, because Eric's also a physical therapist, so yeah. we're in the fun season of that.
How did you injure yourself? Typically, I'll go to the gym, do a really hard workout, and then on the way out of the gym, like stumble down the stairs and tear an ACL or something like that. So please tell me you actually did it doing something cool and not like tripping down the stairs.
Well, cerebral palsy is interesting in that you never really know how you're going to injure yourself, especially when you've never done something ever in your life, and then I sent some video and some photos and stuff of the work we've done.
Oh.
And yeah, so we've come a long way, but sometimes we'll do work on things and I've never done them, and you injure yourself because you just don't know, and then you have to get better that way.
Yeah.
So and then I felt and I normally fall really well. I'm super good at falling, but I've really been terrible at falling.
Well, you know what? It's funny that you say that. Like, it sounds funny to people, but actually in the martial arts world, there is an art to falling. I mean, one of the things you learn in judo, and Eric, you have a martial arts background, is how to fall properly. And I'm not kidding. Like, I've actually been in a motorcycle wreck before when I was younger and flipped over the top of the handlebars of my motorcycle. And I really attribute me not getting seriously injured in that wreck to knowing how to properly fall and roll when I hit the concrete. So
oh my gosh.
There is an art. There's actually an art to falling. So it doesn't sound as silly as it may sound to you coming out of your mouth.
No, but I love it. I love the training. It's changed my life. And that's why it meant a lot to me to incorporate it into the interview, because I mean, to go from where we were and to go from, the doctors saying I would never get up out of a bed, to where we are now. I mean, and my thing is, I just want to see how far I can go, but I'm not I used to be like more ego, like, let me climb a mountain and let me do this and that. And I think it was not the right heart about it. Now I think it's more like, let me just try really hard and see what the Lord can do.
And listening to you speak and you talking about having done 2 marathons, up to this point in my life, the thought of doing a marathon, I just say, like, I'm not that kind of athlete. It's just not what I specialize in. And it's been my excuse for not doing something like that. Now, I'm not saying right now on this podcast that I'm ever going to do a marathon, but after listening to your story, you've at least made me reconsider my position on this, because I'm like, quit using these excuses to just not do something that you don't want to do. Like, the thought of training for a marathon is a huge sacrifice for me. And I work hard in the gym. You can look at some of the stuff that I post, but that's a different kind of work that I just don't particularly want to do. And I just always tell myself, well, I'm just not designed for that kind of athleticism. But You, on the other hand, have way more obstacles to overcome. And so listening to you speak, I'm like, maybe the excuses are a bit outdated for me. Because I always say this
so
is what
I'm not committing to this either.
Yeah.
Neither of us are committing to anything.
Okay.
Coach is like, oh no, what is she about to say? But if I were to run and train for one, would you run it?
No.
Would you run?
No.
No.
No. Maybe I'll tell you what. Maybe you could get me to run a half a marathon. I don't know. Maybe I would.
Okay.
Maybe.
Because maybe Coach will be.
We'll all do a half marathon.
Okay. How about this? We're not committing. None of us are committing.
Okay.
But if all three of us
open to the idea.
Okay, we're all open and non-committal.
Yeah, you can come do the Music City half marathon.
Okay, you might get me to do a half marathon if you did it and Coach did it with me. Now you'd have to be patient with me because obviously I'm not an athlete, but I'm running a different kind of thing. I'm doing it for a different reason. But if I did that, you're open.
I'm open. I'm open to the discussion of doing a marathon, a half marathon. I'll just say this: to date in my life, the most distance I've ever run in my life at one time is 10 miles. Because I have this hard rule. I'm like I used to run a lot of 5Ks to get ready, like as road work. I would run 3 to 4 of them a week to do my road work when I was prepping for fights, and I just have this hard rule. I say, like, look, 5 miles or 3 miles is pretty much my cutoff, because if I don't catch and kill whatever I'm trying to kill within 3 miles, or whatever is trying to kill me,
what does that mean?
it just means that whatever is trying to kill me within 3 miles, if that doesn't happen within 3 miles, both of us have failed. There's no reason to ever run more than 3 miles in this world. Literally. Like if I had to compare myself to an animal, I'm like a cheetah, not because I'm fast, but because I live life like a sprinter. Like I'll do things in a short, like high output for a short period of time. And then I'm just chilling in a tree the rest of the day. And then I don't know.
You have ADHD? I do. That's how I am. I get bored and then I have to do 10 other things.
People talk about this runner's high. That's BS. That's not even like, there's just I'm calling shenanigans on it. It just doesn't even exist. That's all I got to say. But let me take a step back for the listeners here, because we're talking about you running marathons, and or explain to the listeners, because I know, because I've done my reading, but can you explain to the listeners like why you actually running a marathon to begin with? Because you've done 2 of these, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Why was that just 100% improbable? Let's start from the beginning so the readers know about you.
I might as well just say that at the outset that I am a Christian, 100%, and I'm not ashamed of that. And so I am also adopted, and my biological parents were just kids that were 17 years old. And my biological mother went to Planned Parenthood, and she was advised to have an abortion. And so she had one at 7.5 months, and she had a saline abortion. And I know that is hard for people, like they freak out when they hear this. So if you're freaking out as you're listening, I just want you to just like, I care about you. I love you no matter the side that you're on. I'm just giving you what has happened to me and why this is important and pertinent to the conversation. So it was a saline abortion, and that burns the baby inside and out, and then the baby is to be born dead within 24 hours. But I was born alive in an abortion clinic in Los Angeles on April the 6th, 1977, after 18 hours of this. So I should be blind, burned, dead. I should not be here, but I'm here because of Christ and what he's done for me. And so what is amazing is you can go right to my website too, giannajessen.com, and you can see copies of my medical records. And I love this. It says my name, and then it says born during saline abortion, April the 6th, 1977, 6 a.m., 29 and a half weeks, 2.5 pounds, no resuscitation required upon arrival at the hospital, which is completely amazing and miraculous because of what I've just lived through. No resuscitation required. Thank you, Jesus. And so I then was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. I was in the foster care system and later adopted, and I'll have a whole crazy story with that. But I was diagnosed with CP as a result of lack of oxygen to my brain while I was surviving an abortion. And so the brain trauma is immense. I mean, we are to this day dealing with brain trauma that it is maddening. It can be maddening. So, but I am so grateful. I'm so grateful. So every doctor, and I want everyone to hear this that may just be discouraged, and maybe you've had a diagnosis that is disheartening, and maybe every doctor has said there's no hope for you to progress, but every doctor said there was no hope for me to ever move, ever get out of a bed.
Yeah,
but
you were told that you wouldn't even be able to lift your head.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I do want to say just quickly that my foster mother, who through a series of events later became my grandmother, she was one single woman who cared for 56 foster children, all considered unadoptable, took them through a withdrawal from drugs from the womb. I mean, this woman was a saint, and she took me in. And when every doctor was saying, Gianna will never be anything, she will never overcome, she will never progress, that one woman believed that I would. And she did my physical therapy 3 times a day. She prayed, and she put into my brain, and it's in there to this day. You can. I have been so discouraged lately with all the injuries and everything going on. And her voice is in my head. What would Penny tell me to do now? She would say, stay focused, keep going, stay calm, and never quit. And so really, and that's just, it's a real gift. I just want to say that. Cerebral palsy, though it is a challenge, it is one of the greatest educations. It is one of the greatest schools, and it is one of the greatest gifts that I could ever have been granted. Because it's one thing to say you need Jesus or you love Jesus, and it's another thing when you're slamming into your kitchen floor because you've just fallen so hard and you know he is there. And so
I read one of your quotes that said when you referred to cerebral palsy as a gift, that you said that this is a gift because it forces me to rely on him, to rely on Christ. And it's an amazing perspective to have. You were adopted at the age of 4, correct?
3.5.
I'm assuming then at that age you didn't have the ability to walk due to your cerebral palsy.
With a walker.
So you were at least somewhat mobile at that point in time.
Yeah, actually, I was diagnosed at 17 months, and then I was walking with a walker by 3.5, so not bad. And I've had several surgeries, etc.
I tell you what, and I saw the video of you pushing the sleds, which is just insane. Particularly,
and this is thanks to him.
Yeah,
thanks
exactly.
to this guy here.
I'll get to Eric in a second on this, but just watching you push the sleds, I was like, I don't know if I want to push sleds in the gym next to this girl because I might make myself look bad. Like it was truly it's truly impressive to basically start life from that point, and to see the footage of you pushing the sled is just unbelievable, truly unbelievable. When I was reading your story, I would say I'm a bit ignorant about abortions and the practices of abortions, and I had no clue what a saline abortion was and then I read about it, and it's to me, I look at you and I think like it's a miracle that because the saline is designed to burn you, why wasn't certain soft tissues damaged, like your eyes, for example?
Well, it's an excellent question, because my critics love to say I'm lying because, there are no burns in my body. I'm not blind, I'm lying. But I asked a top neonatologist the question in Italy. I was in Italy, and I said, sir, this is what they say, but can you explain to me why I'm not burned and why I'm not blind? And he said, I believe, this is his exact response, I believe that the amniotic fluid was more powerful than the saline solution, and it protected you. He said, that is my medical explanation. but both you and I know it was Jesus. It was Jesus. And it was just so cool for him to, but also very moving for him to explain the reaction of my body in the womb, that our pain reflex is developed in the 7th month, exactly when all of this happened. Because I was saying, I startle, and he said, Gianna, I believe it isn't just your cerebral palsy. I believe that your brain actually remembers and is responding. I was talking earlier about brain trauma. So we're trying to get to the bottom of the hypervigilance and all of that.
If you can medically explain that, great. If not, obviously there are certain things that happen that are just unexplainable, that we typically refer to those things as miracles, right? I mean, because that's what a miracle is. It's something that happens outside of the explanation of science to begin with. But anybody that would refer to you as a liar, it's like, well, just look at the medical records. I mean, you have the actual birth certificate and the history that proves that this is the thing that actually happened to you. So I find it kind of shocking, actually, that somebody would call you a liar on such matter when it's a documented historical event, so to speak.
Yeah, but we're living in a time where facts don't really matter anymore. It's what we want to believe.
Yeah,
it's
relativity.
What we want. So much fun.
Yeah. So growing up, moving with a walker, you talk about your foster mom putting you in the rehabilitation and whatnot. At what age were you capable of walking without a walker? And because I mean, I've seen video of you and you maneuver around fairly normal. Like I would hardly be able to tell that you have cerebral palsy if you didn't tell me.
If you watch her walk, like, I don't know if you've watched.
I haven't seen her straight up walk yet, but I mean, I'm just saying, like watching her push the sled, for example.
I mean, that's pretty cool, though. I mean, that was a great. I'm really excited that you said that, because we worked so hard on my posture. We worked so hard on that. So that you would say that is awesome. And then we're both looking at each other going, we do the stairs, we do all those things, but that goal is, and she always asks, is this what normal people can do? Is this normal? Like, her thing is normal a lot. And we really try to bring those two things together to where there is less of a divide, to where somebody in her condition should not be able to do something. And a normal person takes it for granted. And we bring that closer, and we don't really know where that's going to meet. Sometimes we're just like, let's try it. Let's push it. Let's keep going.
Yeah, you use the word normal. Like, what define normal? Right? Because I mean, what is normal?
Politically correct.
But it's like, I get so tired of the BS where we can't just be, frank about things. Like, people will say, no, you're not really, you're not disabled. You're differently able. I'm like, cut the crap. I'm disabled. I don't care. I'm fabulous.
Yeah,
I'm fabulous.
Yeah, I know the political sensitivity of words and whatnot, but no, when you talk about normal, I'm like, I don't know, I feel like I'm a pretty normal person. But then when you get to know my personality, I'm like, I'm not normal at all. I'm a pretty weird fella. And when it comes to my movement, like, I've had a couple knee surgeries. I'm sure if you analyze my walk, you'd probably see a little hitch in my gait and I'm helping a young man right now walk across the country who had Ewing sarcoma cancer. He had a tumor removed from his leg. They end up removing the fibula from his leg, and they had to restructure his entire ankle. So he has a very, very, very weird gait. Told he would never walk again. Similar kind of story.
And he's walking across the country.
Started in New York on June 17th, and he's somewhere in Texas right now. So I think he's still in Texas. So yeah. And he came to me and said, hey, can you help me prep for this to start walking? And I was like, yeah, sure. This will be cool. Not really understanding what I was getting into. And then I watched him walk, and not knowing, I would have seen him and thought like, oh, well, I don't know, maybe he's got like a little injury or something, and didn't think anything of it. But when I started really analyzing his gait, I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be a very challenging thing. So, I mean, if I was looking at you athletically, for sure, I'd say, okay, there's obviously something going on here. But I've watched several of your speeches. I watch you speak. I know I see you lean on a podium and whatnot, but when you're doing these kind of things, you can't really tell. I was like, I'm like I said, I haven't watched you try to jog across the football field or actually run your marathon, but just seeing you push that sled, for example, I'm like, yeah, it's not the most obvious thing to see footage of you all out of the gate.
can I just be honest?
No, I hate honesty. Please lie to me. Just lie. Just lies. That's all I want right now. Just lies.
Well, when you asked for the interview, I was actually overseas, and it was before I injured myself, and I was on one of the rare solo runs that I promised Coach I would do while I was gone. But I was running, and I'm running, and I started to cry because I thought, someone at your level of discipline actually cares about what we're doing. And that, and then to hear you say, what you're saying is so incredible to me, because it's a big deal to me. And a lot of times, I understand that I'm not an athlete. I'm not trying to be an athlete. I'm doing a different thing. But it gets tiresome when people sort of approach you like, that's so great that you're doing that in a handicapped sort of way, or a special sort of way, that it's just kind of more cute than it is real. You know what I mean? And so I cried because someone at your level of discipline actually could see that it's, the level of work to sometimes do the smallest thing. And I just am so thankful for that. So thanks.
Let me tell you how this looks from my perspective. So I am a professional, or was a professional athlete, and me getting into the gym and doing a grind, well, that's easy for me. That's what I do. It's been my job. And people are like, man, you're so dedicated or whatever. I don't know. My brain is just geared that way, but my body, it feels good when it does that. So it's not a tremendous sacrifice. I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow and I'll do legs, and I'll crush myself to the point that when I'm done, I'll come home. I'll probably take like an hour nap, because I will smash myself to that point. But going in there, I look forward to doing it. It's not one of those things where I have to get my body going. Granted, I'm a little older now, and I got some bumps and injuries and little things and nagging things here and there that can demotivate me a little bit. But when I look at someone in your, that's, to use your word, not normal, who goes through this grind, for you to go through the grind that I go through shows a mental discipline and strength that's beyond something that I have. Truly. It's because if I suddenly, I don't know, let's say I woke up tomorrow and had cerebral palsy, I'd probably fall apart. I'd be like, oh man, I can't do the things I used to be able to do. And I would mentally just probably fold, at least for some time, until I finally picked myself up off the ground. But for you to be able to do that and say, no, I'm going to flip tires. No, I'm going to push sleds. No, I'm going to run a marathon. Shoot, I've used the fact that I'm just kind of big and that's really not the kind of sport that I'm designed for as an excuse to never run a marathon. But for you to say, I got cerebral palsy and they've told me I'm never going to walk again, and I'll prove them wrong. I'm going to run a marathon. You know what? Not just one marathon, I'll run two. Not just to prove a point, but because I actually know that I can do these things consistently if I want to. That's a mental strength that is truly beyond any professional athlete that I know. And so when you talk about caring, it's like, I don't just care. That's respect is what that is.
Yeah, that's awesome for her to hear that. I tell her a lot. Tell her a little bit of that same thing. And when I train her as like an injured athlete.
Yeah.
That is through rehabilitation and doing things. And that's the way we approach these things, and we push those limits. And for someone, a lot of people, if they went out and ran and they just fell on their face, just flat, they're done.
Yeah.
Usually.
They'd say this sport's not for me.
3 times in a run, on the concrete outside, she goes down, gets right back up, and we keep going. And it's incredible for several years now. And it's what we do. And she has that fortitude to not only push it and be done, but could I have been faster? Could I have done this different today? And she always, so yeah, it takes a lot.
It takes a special kind of mindset. Every time I go to the gym, even at this age, right, I'm constantly comparing myself to the yesterday version of me. So if I'm going to go to the gym and do a certain leg workout, I have to, lift heavier weight or do more reps or do it in a faster time or whatever the marker is. Like I have some sort of marker that I'm trying to beat from yesterday or from the day before or whatever. I got to improve. There is no, I had a friend one time we got in a pool to swim, and I said like, well, how many laps are you doing? And like, I don't know. Well, how long are you going to swim for? I don't know. I'm just going to swim until I feel like, until I'm done. And I was like, what? It's so counterintuitive to me because I have a math degree. So I have that left brain numbers, analytical style of thinking. And the whole time I'm like, if I was the one swimming, I'd say, okay, I'm going to swim for 25 minutes. The last time I did this for 25 minutes, I did X number of laps and I have to be able to do Y number of laps this time. Like that's my mindset. And that's the kind of mindset that you have, but on top of by self-profession, not being normal. Right. And so that kind of mentality, it speaks volumes about a person because anybody else would just kind of throw in the towel and say, you know what? I'm not made for these kinds of things, which is exactly what I did with marathons. So I'm the weaker vessel here.
Oh, you asked me a question a few minutes ago and I wanted to answer. And it was, you asked when I was able to walk without a walker.
Yeah.
And it was up until I had a horrible, I wish we had video of this. I had a horrible gait. And there was an experimental surgery at the time, which is now pretty common, called a dorsal rhizotomy. So spinal surgery. And so I walked with a limp, but a horrible situation, very pronounced, till from 3.5 away from the walker though, I think it was around that time, around early childhood. And then I'll have to ask, I'm not quite sure. And then I just remember walking with my limp till about 10 when we heard about this surgery. And that was, now Penny, my foster mother turned grandmother, she was so amazing that she not only taught me how to walk once, but then took me through a 1.5 year recovery of spinal surgery where the risk was I would never walk again. If they spliced too many nerves, or I would walk way better if they spliced just the right amount. And the surgeons were arguing on the way into the OR, and they asked my adoptive mother what she wanted to do, and they took me in. And so it was a 1.5 year recovery of that, and my gait is so much better. But yeah, that was a long haul. And I remember, it's a keep going, but I remember being 10 and laying in the bed, and I remember rolling out of the bed and listening to silly 80s songs and then saying to myself, you are going to now go over there and you are going to, and I remember this, you're going to grab onto this piece of furniture and you are going to drag yourself from this piece of furniture to this piece of furniture. Now, I wouldn't do any of my exercises from the physical therapist. I was like, thank you.
Nobody ever does.
But I was even then going, but I am going to walk again and I'm going to feel myself moving from piece of furniture to piece of furniture. And
Eric, how long have you guys been working together? What condition was she in when she came to you?
Has it been 3.5?
No,
4 years?
It's been 4 years.
Oh man, she's slapping you like a husband. She just slapped you like a husband that forgot his anniversary.
Anniversary. Let's get our anniversary on this. It's been a blur. Yeah, I remember when we started, because of my background working with people that have had strokes and all that and whatever.
Not to mention that you told me I had to lose 30 pounds and not 10.
Yeah, I'm brutally honest with that. But, yeah, we have a way to see how we have things to do. But when I met her, I had to go out to the car to help her in, and she had to take my arm, and she needed assistance in walking around the gym and from piece of equipment to piece of equipment. Her balance was that bad and she was freezing and there was stuff going on. Brain was causing her to freeze and there was a lot of stuff. And that's the condition that I found her in. This was after the marathons and everything else she had come back to this place.
I did the 2 marathons and then I did an exercise for 12 years.
Oh, wow.
She had a regression and she had some stuff happen. So
yeah.
Let me back up a second. How were you able to prep for the marathons then?
Craziness, absolute insanity when I look back at it. I just marched into a gym one day and found some lady. And I said, hey, can you train me like I'm joining the army? I have cerebral palsy 5 days a week. I just want to come in here every day. 5 days a week. And she was sure. And then as we're doing that, I hear about people that for no reason at all, really, just run 26 miles for fun. And I said, can you teach me how to do that? And she probably went, oh my gosh, oh crap, oh my gosh, how do I teach this girl to do this? And I would run around the building and just for hours and hours to train. I would run around anywhere. I just keep running to the point where I was bleeding through my shoes, which was not good. But anyway, so we did that. And then for the London one, it was even worse. I was injured and all of this, but I was like, I don't care. I'm doing this anyway. And then, but I'm all or nothing, which is why I hired a coach, because then I got home and I'm like, hey, I'm awesome. I never have to exercise ever again. And I can eat whatever I want for 12 years. And then I was really going downhill, and I knew I was, and I prayed. And then the next day I met her.
So the 12-year layoff, what was the cause of the 12-year layoff then?
Just, I didn't want to exercise.
Lack of motivation.
And I will not exercise without a trainer. But when I have a trainer that I trust, I will work so hard, but I will not do it by myself.
Just if you don't mind me asking, what was the time that you turned in on the marathon? How long did it take you to do
it? The first one, everybody had gone home and they'd eaten all the donuts. And the only people left were
she's still angry about the donuts. She's still angry about the donuts. She's like, those people, they ate all the donuts. They didn't save me not one.
The only people left really were the EMTs and everybody. And you knew it was a big deal because it was 7 hours and 20 minutes of running on my toes. And I wanted to die. But when I crossed in Nashville, and then I was accidentally high in the one for like the first half or the first 6 miles in the one in London, because I took a muscle relaxant.
Oh, wow.
Because I was injured. And that was a really bad idea. And then I came to, and that was over 8 hours. And I was like, I don't care in both of them. I don't care what time. I don't care if I'm out here for the rest of my life. I don't care if I have to drag myself across the finish line and nearly die. I'm going to finish because I will be pissed off if I don't finish. And so I did. So I wasn't doing it to win. I was just doing it to finish.
It reminds me of, I actually talked about this lady in my TED talk. You know, Gabriella Anderson Scheiss. 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles was the first Olympics that had women's marathon running. And prior to that, the belief was that women were not capable or strong enough of running a marathon, that it would be detrimental to their health. Anyway, this lady, she ran for Switzerland. Check the video footage of this out. It's pretty crazy, but she came in. So the way that the marathon was done in Los Angeles that year was you ran through the city, and then the last leg of the marathon, you entered into the Olympic arena, ran one lap around the track to finish out the marathon. But she had been dehydrated. She came in, I don't know, I can't remember the time at this point, like 4 hours after the first place finisher or something. And she was stumbling down the track, weaving from lane to lane because she was just dehydrated. And at one point in time, the Olympic officials went to grab her because they thought she was going to fall. And she's like fighting them off, like, don't touch me, because if she got touched, she would have been disqualified. Yeah. Thank you. I was lost for words there. But anyway, I can't remember. It took her something like, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 minutes to finish just one lap around the track, just stumbling. And to have that kind of grit, particularly in an event like that, when you know you've lost, it's like saying, I'm going to lose, but I'm going to at least finish with a champion's mentality. And I've always found that to be highly, highly motivational. So when you talk about turning in an 8-hour time, man, it's like, you know, people that can run marathons, they can at least maintain a certain pace to get it done in a reasonable amount of time for a marathon. I think that like running more than 20 minutes is just unreasonable to begin with. That's me. But to be out there just running for 8 hours in a day, or 8 hours plus, that's like a full day work for people, right? And that's manual physical labor at 8 hours a day. And to have that kind of mental grind to do that is pretty impressive.
Thank you. And also, I forget that for me, it's even harder on my body. So it isn't just a normal body, you know, running. It's all of myself fighting in for a long time.
because of the brain stuff, everything works harder. It tenses up more, and
it makes it harder.
And she's fatiguing so much faster than anybody else would, really. So because of that, the hypervigilance and whatever else, especially if things are really freaked out that day.
When you're training her, you finish your point. I'll ask this question since I already cut you off. I was rude, but when you're training her, talking about like fatiguing quickly, what do you do setting up a routine for her? Because the reason why I'm harping on this idea of, first of all, Gianna, I just want to say this. I know so many people that don't want to go to a gym because they just don't know how to use the machines. And they're like, I feel uncomfortable going to a gym. The fact that maybe you don't know how to use the machines, plus that on top of that, you have cerebral palsy, you're not really an athlete by your own admission, you fatigue really quickly, would make somebody, any normal person, because you're not normal by your own admission.
No, I'm extraordinary.
Yeah. So, but it would have any normal person so scared to go into the gym, like, especially when you start putting all these factors together, that it's like that. I don't have the courage to step into that world. And so for me, for my listeners, I find this truly motivating for people. It's like, man, you're without excuse. Like, you were truly without excuse. Like, you're talking to somebody here who has, first of all, overcome any possible odds you can think of just in your birth alone. But then when you tell me about your surgery and the statistics, like one nerve too many, one nerve too less, it's like at some point in time, you got to step back and say, if God before us, who can be against us, type of thing, right? Like, these are just astronomically improbable events in your life, and it's not just one, and probably not just two. If I knew your entire
the math teacher.
Right, yeah, exactly. But this is probably a series of multiple events throughout your life. So I don't know. I kind of went off on a tangent there, Eric. But with all that being said, like, you still have the courage to get in the gym, and so now you got to do these workouts. She fatigues fast. How do you set these workouts up for her, Eric?
Yeah. So when she started coming from that big layoff, that her brain, when it starts going down that path or even freezing, which we still deal with today, you don't know sometimes day to day what's going to happen.
Do you know what we mean by that, the freezing?
No, I don't. And I was going to ask, I didn't want to cut him off again because I've already been rude once.
Oh, no, it's fine.
But I was going to come back around to it at the end of this.
It can go from like a really, really freaked out thing where, somebody's just
like fight or flight.
It's fight or flight. It's shutting down her body. And it could be like she can't take a step.
Yes.
And it can be not take a step. It can be where her body is like almost throwing her down. Sometimes it will.
We've seen it.
We watched her body, like the legs just like, no, you're done. And the leg will like make her trip. And, but we went from that, again, me helping her to, I love Christ. I'm a Christian. She is. So we were like, we got God in our corner. We're going to do this thing. And we walked through it and never said there was nothing that we can't do. So, with my physical therapy background, everything else, I was like, we're going to approach this, the brain we will deal with and try to like just rewire as much as possible with miracles and with what we can do and with anything else. It's like,
pathways.
We're going to create new pathways and we're going to retrain your body and you're going to do things you've never done before.
I have an idea.
Never thought you could do.
Okay.
I have an idea with these new neural pathways, right? You've already done marathons. Like, your body already knows how to do that. So there's no sense in us doing marathons. I had Joe DeCina on my podcast at one point. Who is the inventor of the Spartan race? Why don't we do a Spartan race?
Yeah, who said that before?
I said I would love that, but there are, like, talk about when I did my first obstacle course. Like, what about?
No, you're fine to do it. We can do it.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I think we can do it.
I don't recall this conversation.
No, and I
don't recall this. When did you say I could do the Spartan race?
Because there's various levels of these races.
Right.
Life and I have done a bunch of these. So there's various ones, and like I had said, when there's an obstacle that we can modify around it, we can help you get through it. And
I think I do. I take it back. I think I do remember that.
Like, that's just not going to happen, and we skip it. We do something else. Like, we won't do any shock therapy or anything. But we've talked about that. We've talked about some rock climbing. We've talked about different challenges because I said that too. It's like you conquered this run thing. even though we run as part of her training, we'll run an hour 4 days a week.
Yeah.
To start off. And so
which is huge for someone with cerebral palsy.
It is. And she used to rest when she did the marathon.
It's huge for someone without cerebral palsy. Do you know how many people in this world actually run an hour 4 times a week? No, really. Like, even when I was training for fights, I wouldn't run an hour 4 times a week. It just didn't happen.
It's like I believe you more than I believe him, because he'll tell me something, but I'll be like, what? No, not really. And then, but now I believe you both.
Yeah. He has a background in martial arts. He's a believable guy.
I love to hear stuff coming from you. I'm like, I hope you realize I've said all.
It's like when
things.
I have a buddy who's like, hey man, can you talk to my son about, I don't know, good nutrition or whatever? And so I'll talk to the kid and I'll give him this advice, and the kid's like, man, that's really good advice. And the dad, like his dad will look at me and be like, man, I literally told him that 2 weeks ago, and he just won't listen to me because it's me.
It's so funny. No, I'm really, I don't know. I'm not saying no to the Spartan race, but I think seeing both of you running a half marathon with me would be pretty cool.
Well, look, I'm going to send Joe a message after we're done here.
Oh my gosh! But then, I'm not committing. I'm not committing yet. I'm not.
Okay, hold on. We're saying we're open to the idea of it. That's it. And I'll just say this: I'm more open to the idea of the Spartan race than the marathon.
Okay, but y'all know how they work. So we'll just talk about this when we don't bore the listeners to death. But I don't know how many things in the Spartan race I could actually do.
Well,
like, what if y'all can do like 10,000 things and I'm just standing there and I go through the mud and it's over?
We'll figure that out. I'll talk to Joe about it, and we'll see.
The team approach.
Carry me the entire time.
No, we'll help you get through it. There's queuing. There's
cool.
It's teamwork.
But
teamwork helps.
I'm not committing, but I'm
Eric, you do rock climbing though, correct? I saw a picture of you rock climbing on your website. Yeah. So.
So do I.
Well, that's good. That was going to say. That's what I was going to say to him. I'm like, that's actually a really good exercise because
I've done the walls.
Yeah, I mean, well, I do a little bit of rock climbing. I mean, I've traveled a bit, and so I've had the ability to do some outdoor climbing.
Not real ones. I've not done real ones.
Yeah, I want to get her outside to try that. I think that would be an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, I think, but not about 99% of the rock climbing I've done has been all indoor stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm not the type of athlete that's designed for rock climbing either. But there's proof in the pudding on that. Like I'm when I'm climbing, I might like maybe if I climb consistently for 6 to 8 months, several days a week, I might be able to do the occasional easy VS4, maybe, but that's about it. Like I'm probably like I top out around VS3. That's it. I'm too big. I'm long, so that helps. I can reach things, but the grip and everything for somebody my size just doesn't work really well.
No, I would love to get her outside and try that. But I love the obstacle course thing too. I've brought that up as well.
I love the idea of obstacle course.
I've done that with some of my clients before. We've all done some of the races. We've all met up and whatever. So I think that's a good one. And or we can run a half marathon.
And one thing too that can work for me and against me is I'll be in this and I'll get really mad, especially if the freezing. Did we explain the freezing? The freezing is like the fight or flight, and I'll like I have all the capability I had a second ago, but my brain doesn't believe it. And so I'm looking into this new technology with these electrodes and stuff hooked up to your brain. I want to see if that can help me. But pardon me. But I'll get mad. I mean, I will get so mad, and I'll look at him and I'll be like, I am mad. And then I'll think, Gianna, I will think this because I'm aware while it's happening. That's what is so infuriating. Is it's one thing if my brain checked out and but I'm aware of every second. And so I'll think,
is that normal? Is that self-awareness normal with somebody that has cerebral palsy?
It's the levels of what these folks go through is just all over the place. It really is. And there's different levels of
CP.
Absolutely. Of how disabled they are, how much the brain's been affected.
Like my hand used to be up here. Uh-huh. My hand used to be up here. And when I was little, it pissed me off, but all the adults, all the PTs would say, put your hand down. And thank God, because now, I mean, my hand would still be up there. And that would make my life a whole lot different. But when I'm that mad, I say to myself, use all of that anger to like hit the boxing bag or like do something to end this really crappy, because we work 2 hours at a time normally. So to end this really crappy session, just hit the bag, like use all that anger.
Oh, wow.
So anyone listening that gets really mad, do that instead of drink.
Yeah.
2 hours at a time in your training session.
Yeah.
I tried it like.
So we started 4 hours, 1 hour sessions. And then I looked at him one day and I said, can we go to 6? And he's like, cool, that's cool. And then one day I looked at him and I really didn't know what he'd say. I said, can we do 8? But could we do 2 hours? Because that way we could really incorporate the PT with the physical therapy with the fitness. Because I like that he cares if I'm morbidly obese or not, where a lot of physical therapists don't care. And I like that he has the knowledge, like, because this is a problem we often have when we're working, is I don't have the awareness of when I'm tired, and I don't have I don't always feel. Can you explain that?
Yeah. She can't tell when she's tired or even if something's hurting. So it's, and
I'll keep going.
So keep going. And I have to know that this is going to be too much, or, and we'll have to stop things because we can go up and down stairs, and she does not know she's tired, but I watch it in her gait and I watch what's happening. And I'm like, we have to stop. And if we did one more, she would go down. And so it's a constant, a lot of that. And even as we push it with increasing in weights and intensity and whatever else, we have to do it very smartly and a little bit at a time, because just a little too much, she can't feel it at all, but it can set her way back if something more goes on and the body over tenses and it creates a cycle of things. So it's a lot of work, but like you said, she's incredibly dedicated and she works harder than anybody. And she's inspired the whole gym all this time. People come up to her, they come up to me, and it's changing other people's lives just watching.
But also just say the importance of movement. Like I will never stop. I will never stop moving, because I know what it was. I knew when I was sitting in my chair at home the day before, I think it was the Lord that just put it in my heart. You're going downhill, Gianna. Like, you've chosen to sit here for 12 years and you've got more in you, and you have to make a choice. This is not who you are, and you've got to move, and you're not going to move on your own. You need help. That's okay. And so find whatever it is that makes you work really hard and don't stop moving. I would say that to anyone with CP. We're not all the same. Anyone with MS, any of it, do something.
I would say that to anyone in general, because I watch my mom at the age that she's at now. And as you get older, you begin to decline as quickly as like on the back end of life. Those last 5 years change just as rapidly as the first 5 years of life, just in the opposite direction. So I'll tell you a story. I was on a plane one time with a guy who was in his 90s, and we got to chatting, and I said, you flying for business or pleasure? He's like, oh no, I'm out here doing work. And I looked at him, I'm like, bro, like, how old are you? And he was 91 or 92. And I said, are you ever going to retire? And he looked at me, and he's just like, son, when you rest, you rust. And
wow.
and that's something that's kind of stuck with me. It's kind of circling back to your life story, Gianna. This is part of what really attracted me to speaking to you, because I believe that the people out here, one of the messages they need to hear is you're obviously very motivating, just given being a survivor of abortion, but on top of that, the mentality that you have towards life in general. You've talked about difficult days versus non-difficult days, and how you always have a smile and the positive attitude you have.
Not always.
No, but yeah, I know. I mean, but I should not use superlatives as freely as I do, but frequently, or you learn how to replace those difficult days with smiles when you need to, because you'll move towards Christ, or you'll move towards people that bring you joy rather than those things that don't. And you have these control mechanisms. And I just think that aside from your life story, there's so many more aspects of you just with the training that people can find motivating to, because I mean, seriously, if I was sitting here listening to this podcast today and I happened to skip the gym, I would be like, man, aren't I a tool? Right. And so there's just it's that mentality, because many people that are in a situation like yours that have a cause that they champion, like that's the one thing that they treat like a champion, and then everything else in their life kind of falls by the wayside. And especially in mixed martial arts, when you're training, I always tell people you're only as strong as your weakest link. So you may be a really good striker, you may be really good at, and this happened to me early in my career. I was great. I was great striker, great on the ground, but I didn't have good takedowns, and my wrestling was my weak link. And so I spent several years in my career, early, midway through my career, at the beginning of when I was fighting in the UFC, really working with some high level wrestling coaches to bring that up to par, because that was my weakest link, and I can only perform as well as my weakest link. So you could be out here championing for a ton of stuff, particularly like, a lot of the anti-abortion things that you do and whatnot. But if you're not motivating in other areas of your life, and it's like, well, you've kind of developed this full package, like, and even when you have tough days, you self-admittedly said, I'm not always smiling, but you probably still get up and you probably still go to the gym, and you have days where you're not feeling well. And I'm sure we all have, you have days where you skip, which is just your body, and that's being smart, but you're just, you find ways to do this. And I find it highly motivating for a lot of people. And that's why I thought that your story overall, not just that one area of your story, not just the actual fact that you're an abortion survivor, but these other aspects of your life that I find that my listeners.
Oh gosh. And I really appreciate that. I really do, because I am not just one dimensional. I have a lot going on in my life. And I really want to live while I'm alive in every area. I mean, even through the hardest times, and there have been a lot lately, but there's been a lot for a lot of people. I think there's such a victim mindset that has taken hold among many Americans in particular, that to me is for the birds. I think, if you just go away, just go and whine to someone else, because we have been given breath and life, and we have another day to live, and that is a gift. And also people, if you can move without having to think about every movement, you have been given so much. You have been given more than I can even express, and thank the Lord Jesus for that, and not for everything you don't have. And then if you've lost your job, and if you've lost your job recently, find something you're great at and figure it out, and take up a new thing and learn a new language, something. But just don't sit there and say, I've lost everything. Pick up something new and try, and keep trying.
I want to get back to the victim mentality, but you kind of touched on this a little bit. I always tell people that when you're having one of those days, maybe you lost a job and you just feel like the world is crashing in on you, and the weight of the world is on your chest or your shoulders. I always tell people, like, you know what, find somebody that's in a worse situation than you. Go to a children's hospital and find a 6-year-old that just found out he had leukemia and he's fighting for his life.
Oh.
And it puts things into perspective. It truly does, right? Because I can get up tomorrow morning and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't sleep really well. My back hurts. Like, I don't feel like working out today. And then maybe I'll kick over to your Twitter, and I'm going to see you pushing sleds. And I'll be like, oh, Lord of mercy. Like, she's grinding. If she's grinding, I got to get out of bed, because I am without excuse. So, it's about perspective. But going back to the comment you made about the victim mentality, how is it I've heard you talk previously about breaking the cycle of life. I'm big proponent of this, about breaking the cycle of life, because I grew up very poor, in very poor neighborhoods. And you know how that happens, like divorced parents, single mom household. My dad was present, so I don't want to paint that picture, but my brother and I were left with a lot of free time, with a mom who worked 90-hour weeks, providing for us. And that leaves 2 young boys a lot of time to get into trouble. And people that are in these kinds of situations, low socioeconomic situations, this just breeds typically a cyclical pattern. And I always pride myself on breaking that pattern and not having that victimized mentality. So talk to me about that, because you've talked about living this life of rejection, essentially, and having been rejected your entire life, but breaking
to the present moment by many people.
Yeah, but breaking this pattern of victimization.
I'll go back to Christ. I'm a Christian, and I left I left that mindset when I surrendered to him, because he's not sitting here. He's sitting here upholding me, helping me walk every day, helping me get up after I've fallen, or whatever the case may be, helping me heal at the moment. You know, he has taught me that I have no room for victimization in him, because I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Now, he's great. He's a great listener, and I will have my meltdowns. I will freak out, but then I will then keep going, and because he's with me. But I just hate this idea of, well, I came from this, and I blah blah blah, and I don't have this, and this is why. Yeah, stuff happens, and it's terrible, and it's awful, and it's unfair, but you're alive. And I mean, sometimes the biggest hindrance is that victim mindset, and it enrages me. It really does, because it's really, in a way, such arrogance. You know, please just everyone stop what you're doing and feel sorry for me, and blah 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 blah, and my story's worse than yours, yada yada yada. Listen, I just want to say a collective to everyone: get over yourself and move on to actual life, because that is more crippling than a disability. And also, for the people that say, oh, I'm sorry, you know, the baby is disabled, you need to have an abortion, I can't imagine that quality of life. Oh, really? So that's not at all arrogant. How can you possibly know my quality of life? Do you have any idea the fabulous quality of life that I have, that I would have no idea about if I didn't have half of the challenges I have? Have you ever thought about how maybe challenges aren't a bad thing? Maybe they're here to make you more extraordinary. So don't talk to me about my quality of life from your perspective, healthy person, because to me that sounds like Adolf Hitler. I'm less of a person because I'm disabled. I should be gone. No, I don't think so. I think I should be fabulous.
That is awesome.
She might have something to offer the world. I don't know.
Yeah, well, clearly that's why she, you know, she, like, God told her to get up and get moving, because she had more work to do, you know. So she had to be.
Yeah.
He wanted you here for a bit more time. This mentality of victimization, I'm thinking about this, I guess this is more of a philosophical question, but does it tie into forgiveness? Because let me clarify, because people that are victimized, is this a perception issue, or is this maybe they've been wronged in life and they have people to forgive? I'm kind of asking you about forgiveness because you've spoken about forgiveness before, which on the one hand you're pretty good at, but when you spoke about the donuts at the marathon, you seem like you have some forgiveness issues that you need to let go of. So
I need to go to therapy about the donuts.
Right, exactly. Like, it's like, because you spoke about forgiving your biological mother, which is a big thing, but the donuts, like, I feel like you're hanging on to this, you know. So I'm not here to give you a therapy session, but you know, just food for thought for you moving forward, self-improvement, all that kind of stuff.
Maybe on the next training session, coach, when I'm running.
I think it's because I also took the donuts away from her. So
I remember saying I went to Krispy Kreme and I just got the donut holes. Will that work? Like I got the calorie count on my Fitness Pal.
she's trying to work around it.
And
There's an obvious problem.
From that perspective, you're the worst kind of client. Oh God, that I would like training you with cerebral palsy would not be an issue. Training you with that mentality, I'd be like, look, Gianna, that's got to go. Like, we're gonna have to change this whole mental game.
She did it. She made it through.
Yeah, I'm still here. But no, really, it's a good point you raised, because I think on one hand, as a society, we sort of are a lot of people are wallowing. And then on another hand, we're so afraid to look at what's happened to us that we just are very surface. We haven't really dealt with anything. So it's either you're enraged and pretending like you're happy and you're fine, or, you know, you're really mad and full of bitterness, and, you know, and maybe someone in the middle. I think it's a complicated thing, but for me, I found that bitterness takes your life away while you're alive. It really does. It takes your life away. And you know, I'm a human being like anyone else, and I try to really feel my range of emotions, so I'm not sort of bottling them all up so I can work them out. And I do a lot of working that out in the gym. Like we're working so hard that cerebral palsy is frustrating. It's frustrating as hell. And so it helps me to have to work so hard. So I'm not so mad at, trying so hard. I don't want that to sound victim-like, but I don't view myself that way, but you know what I'm saying? It's just, something can be a gift and also tremendously maddening at the same time. And maybe forgiveness is the same way. You forgive, and yet you don't discount what's happened to you, but you also don't, you can choose not to live there.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you think. Listen, I try to be one of the most positive people, particularly one of the skills that I've worked on, particularly at a later age in life. And a lot of this has to do with the amount of traveling that I've done, because I've seen some of the poorest slums in the world, all over the world. I've been to 60 plus countries at this point in time. And I've met, I always say, like, I grew up poor, but poor here in the United States, I won't even talk about that internationally. When I get outside of the United States, like, poor here it's just on a completely different level when you're in a country like Pakistan, for example. And so I always try to look at a different kind of perspective to realign myself. But the frustration, I would imagine, this is kind of what you're trying to say, is the frustration of on a daily basis of, like, something is so much more difficult for you than it is for, I'm using your word again, a normal person. That you have to be reminded of it occasionally, but you have to also clear your mind of that mindset of, like, no, this is different for me. Is that kind of what you're trying to say? Or
because sometimes it's more interesting to hear someone else's perspective on your frustration than you trying to explain it.
When something stops her because of that drive, it really
makes me mad.
It really makes her mad, and we try to use that anger. And again, like she's talking about with a choice, people there's justification for feeling bad, for feeling these ways, or like bad things happen to you, like, blah, blah, blah. But like, you have the choice to do something with that. When she freezes, when this is going on, when she's frustrated, whatever else, she could choose to be like, why do I need to push it? Look what's happened to me. I deserve a rest. Look what's happened to my body. I just hit the ground 5 times today during the session. Like, I deserve a rest. But she chooses to go forward, to push, to do that things. And people can choose to be happy, to not live as a victim, to not, like, your future is your choice.
Yeah.
You go make the best of it.
No matter what's happened to you.
Whatever circumstances you've been in, and you might be justified to feel bad about it or bad thing, but it's like, the future is up to you. It is your choice.
And that only lasts so long. That only feeds someone, I think, so long. And, you can only tell that sad story so long. You know what I'm saying? People, we got to move along.
Yes.
This is not the politically correct show.
Not at all. Well, yeah. So we don't dwell on that when something is going on or whatever else. It's like, there's no, like, let's feed this. How long is this going to be like this? How long? It doesn't. We just keep looking forward. We're like, guess what? We're going to get past this. We have the whole rest of your life that we're going to make better. We're going to make it better.
Yeah.
So, it's like, you can't get stuck there no matter what is happening. You have the rest of your life. Let's make it better.
Well, listen, I appreciate you guys coming on today so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think there's going to be a lot of good information for the listeners that end up tuning into this as well. So I will thank you for them indirectly. What's the name of your gym for the listeners out there? Anybody that's in Nashville?
Total Body Transformation Personal Fitness Training is my company.
Gotcha.
Eric Hershey.
Check that out. And Gianna, obviously people can go to your website, Gianna Jessen, right?
Jessen, yeah.
Spell it out, because your name's not spelled like some people might think that it is.
Exactly right. So it's GIANNA JESSEN, not Jensen, Jessen.
On your website, you talk a lot about your birth, but I really think that you should add some motivational stuff in there, because I think there's a lot of help that you could give a lot of people.
Well, I want to read the whole website. That's on my to-do list.
Okay.
And thank you for having us. It was a real honor to meet you and be on this.
No, it's my pleasure. And I really
and don't forget about the half marathon and the Spartan race.
No. I'm telling you, I owe Joe a message anyway, so I'll get on that and I'll send him one. And then the next time I'm down in Nashville, because I actually one of the gentlemen that helps manage me is located in Nashville. So like I said, I'm down there from time to time. So I'll definitely hit you guys up and I'll come in and get a training session or something like that.
Yeah,
Eric.
come join us.
Oh my gosh, that'd be crazy.
That'd be awesome.
Appreciate you guys coming on. And if you need anything, you guys got a hold of my people, so you know how to get a hold of me. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Rock on. Have a good night.
Quite Franklin is providing this podcast as a public service, but it is neither a legal interpretation nor legal advice, nor a statement of Quite Franklin policy. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation of that product or entity by Rich Franklin or Quite Franklin. The views expressed by guests on the podcast are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by Quite Franklin employees or representatives are the views and opinions of the persons expressing them, and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Quite Franklin or any of its officials or principals. Nothing heard on this podcast at any time is medical advice or is intended as medical advice. The listener must always consult his or her personal physician or other qualified medical professional regarding any questions of a medical nature. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact our general counsel.